Hello. Let me check my volumes and stuff. Mic seems to be happening. Camera seems to be happening. That's all good. Unclutter my desk here for a second. Well, what I'm going to do now is pick up where I left off on the last stream, which was that somebody brought up the fact that I had not yet fixed. Oh, this has a lot of sugar in it, and I just spilled it. Okay, hold on a second. It actually doesn't have that much. It just tastes very sweet. So somebody had brought up the fact that, there was one particular bug that we were fixing, and it tripped this other assert involving enums, where I was like, oh, that's a problem. And then we fixed the original bug, and I had assumed at the time that that also fixed this assert, but then somebody said, hey, did you test that? And I hadn't. This was the code that's triggering the assert, this if false with stuff inside it. And when I do that, I'm getting this assertion that these declarations inside the enum finish compiling, but they're not officially getting added. They're not officially getting registered with the enum, so the enum doesn't know how many values it has. This num members completed is 0. And am I actually using that? Let's check that. Because we used to use it to set the max value. We don't use this at all. So maybe we just get rid of it to simplify the compiler, honestly. Although, no, because maybe we do need it for debugging, because we're not using the actual value, but we're using it to debug the fact that we did get everybody. That's the only function that this has right now. This first variable is not being used at all, so we can delete that. Save a line of code. Right? Yeah. So let's do that. Well, let's find out. So these are two numbers that are going to be useful. This is the serial number of the enum itself, and this one is the first declaration inside the enum. So what I can do is I can track what happens when we infer this declaration. So I'm going to delete this just to get rid of that. And I'm going to say infer types ask declaration. No, okay. There wasn't an overload for that, which means I handle it in the switch here. Oh no, there is an overload for that. Visual Studio, go to the... Okay. Did those used to be listed in the opposite order? I don't even know. All right, so conditions. Like, yeah. The reason I got so upset is there's definitely been times when it always jumps to the declaration and not the definition, or the other way, whichever one of those is whichever one. All right, so we're going to break here when we infer that guy, and my suspicion is that we're shortcutting this and never getting there. Oh, whoops, sorry. I shift F5'd instead of F5, so we were skipping the debugger. Okay. So we didn't get there. However, well, okay. So let's first of all make sure that our serial numbers aren't drifting, which they shouldn't be. No, it's still the same number. The type should be declaration, yeah. So let's look at this and make sure that it's actually out of the pipeline. It's queued. It's out, and its flags are 0, which means it hasn't been dequeued. So this declaration did finish compiling. The expression has an inferred type that's set. So it's being set without going through here, which means we're shortcutting it somewhere. And then I forgot, in the case that you shortcut things, that they maybe need to get right asserted in enum or something. So let's, we can go to the place where this is constructed. Not there, here. Set a breakpoint here, which is going to slow us down a fair bit. But we can check that. And then once we get the breakpoint where that node is constructed, I can set a data breakpoint on its inferred type slot, and I can see who's filling it out. Now, if it weren't for stupid ASLR, which I hate, we could have set the data breakpoint based on the address of the last run. We can't do that because Windows is a butt, and so is Linux. So is Linux, so we have to do this very slow process instead, which is annoying. I mean, I guess we couldn't directly because it's heap allocated, so we'd have to like wait till some point in the program and set the data breakpoint. But we would at least have known the address. All right, so let's return from here first, because then it'll be casted to the right thing. So right, here's the declaration. I'm going to say the address of the declaration's inferred type, which is this, and you notice that the contents is null, which is correct. So we're going to set a new data breakpoint at 0x3415820. Oh, the other thing is, well, I don't know. Let's not rant about ASLR, except to say I don't like it. It's a suspiciously small address, but that's where we are. So 3415820, 3415820. All right, we just wait for that to trip. Oh. Okay, what's happening here? When static if rejects a scope, it basically dequeues, because everything living in that scope, so all, these guys are basically traveling through the compiler, getting all the compilation stages run on them. But then, this says, oh, get rid of these guys, throw them on the floor. When it throws them on the floor, oh, wait. Yeah, I mean, so these are not living directly in the static if, but they're nested, right? So this get scope status walks up the scopes and decides we were rejected and does this stuff. But this is not, like when we dequeue things, we're supposed to call a standard routine or at least set a flag, and we're not doing that. So that's one problem. But then the other problem is when we're hitting that assert, that enum should also be dequeued. So like we're not realizing that. So there's like two independent things happening. Let's fix this one. So we're in pipes.cpp, line 968. And then I'm going to go to general.h. Now it's in interp.h maybe? Queued. All right. So this has been unqueued is supposed to get set. Which also might be, remember one of the symptoms back when stuff was going wrong was people were like sleeping on these. And we were like, why is that happening? Well, you're not supposed to sleep on somebody who's DQ'd. So see, this unqueue routine is really only supposed to operate on things that are in pipe infer, which I guess is where this would have been. Probably. So we're gonna try this. We're gonna say unqueue it. Well, we're going to just do that instead of these three things. And similarly down here, unqueue it. Just so we're going through a standard place. We're going to see if that fixes anything. It may not, because like I said, the enum also is supposed to oh, we don't. Is that on interp? Yeah. It's interp arrow unqueue. And this is very old and has been long cleaned up. All right. See what happens. Why is that still there? I've got some weird breakpoints left over. Clean up my breakpoint list. I don't even know where these ones are. Okay, that one is a useful place. Some of these might be from many debugging sessions ago. Well, we'll leave one there, because if we get that dependency bug, we'll leave one there. We'll leave one there. So we are getting a dependency problem. But we're not getting an assert anymore. Right. so it's again depending on things. Is it depending on? Is it depending on something that's been? No, this hasn't been DQ'd again. So what? Okay, this is the static if itself. Why is it depending on the static if? What's going on there? What's the dependency? Pipe flags 8. Line 507 of parser.cpp. So this is tells me where it was added. So the lambda's body, the lambda where the static if is living, depends on the static if for the message pipe. So which means, but this guy passed the message pipe, so what the hell? This is probably due, like, so this guy, you know, what's happening is this guy's waiting on these other guys, but he shouldn't be waiting. So why is he waiting? Why is he waiting? He's saying if it's better to just call that unqueue routine, what was all that other code doing? Well, I probably... So unqueue was only really used before in like one specific case, so I probably just didn't think of it when I wrote those routines for static if. I mean, that just happens sometimes. Like unqueuing is not a super standard thing that happens yet. Like, you know, the compiler's in development and I'm figuring out how things should go, and the unqueue was added at some point, and I sort of thought maybe that's how things should go generally. And as time goes on more, I'm like, yeah, I like that abstraction of things. So, you know, it's just in code that's in progress. Things are not necessarily established sometimes, and that's sort of what that was. And or me just making a mistake in not thinking of it, depending on what order I did those things in. So this one's in send messages, and it's depending on... Oh, that's the lambda. That's the lambda. This queue is the other guy that the lambda is depending on. And yeah, I don't understand. So I call this cleaning dependencies thing supposedly see how it got here. So this is the message pipe. Okay, so we were setting our breakpoint here before so we could debug, so let's do that again. All right, so let's see what our problem is. How many dependencies do we have? 81, but many of them may be for later pipes. So let's see if we hit that, and let's see if we hit that. So either it's going to be, for this pipe, it's going to have a specific flag that says this dependency is on the message pipe, or it's going to have this target must pass infer before read message. And this is that thing, that unqueued flag that I just made sure we hit, right? If the dependencies target ever has that, then we just clear the flag, so we have no dependency. That's why I was saying we should set that flag. All right. So the dependency has this newfangled thing that I added in the last debug session. This is the enum itself. It is in the infer pipe. Okay, so this guy doesn't realize he's in the static if is the problem. Because he should be exiting the pipe as well and unqueuing, and he's not, or she's not if you think static ifs are female. It's got no dependencies, so I'm not sure. Oh, you know what it is? Well, we'll see. Let's just see what happens. So the serial on that queued is 429. Let's look at when we called unqueue there, it was here, right? So this is when we're going to put this thing in the infer. We're going to kick off an infer job on this guy. Before we do that, you know, if the static if hasn't been resolved yet, this guy will be waiting, but then he should pass through here. So I'm going to set a breakpoint in do job infer. Take these out. Right, and we're going to set that on QS is equal to 429 and restart. Okay. Probably, since this is the first time we're trying to infer this enum, its static if is probably not resolved yet. So this status is to, thanks C++. Whoa, okay. What the hell? Maybe we have the wrong it expression file. Let's make sure we're talking about the right thing. First, 609. Oh, this is, okay. I think what's going on is maybe QSs are not unique across workspaces. Yeah. So the problem there is we had a 429 in our meta program, but now this is the 429 in the main program. So that's just serial number 429. It's at line 279 of main, so let's check that. Yes, so that's the enum that we care about. So now let's check the scope status. It's 2 again. So it thinks it should go. Let's see why. Here's why. In general, in the syntax tree, the way that things are, when you're nested inside a parent scope, you don't have an upward pointer to that scope. Maybe it would be a good idea to have that. We don't currently have that. So I guess the consequence is anything that can be queued independently needs to have a back pointer to its enclosing scope that's stored in some particular place on that one node, you know, and then this procedure knows how to get it. And what's happening is we're asking what the enclosing scope is for this enum, so we can test if it's inside a static if, and we're not getting such a thing. This whole function is kind of a hack, and we should probably do better later, but I think the thing to do now is to just set enclosing scope on enum. Because it's just not clear. Like if you set enclosing scope on everything, then at some point if you copy stuff or you do a scope move operation, you have to make sure to reset it on everything, and sometimes that gets nuanced. It also means you can't reuse expressions without copying them, which I don't usually do right now, but I might be copying it someday. Changing it is a little bit non-trivial, so and a bigger thing than I want to do right now. I just want to fix the bug right now. So, well, first of all, maybe enum has an enclosing scope, and I'm just not using it. No, except we do. We have scope parent probably. So. What is it doing with this indentation? Case asked enum return. Well, auto asked enum is static cast asked enum expression. Return asked enum scope parent. So yeah, I mean, if we were to store a separate enclosing scope pointer, like when I rant about how useless this is, like look at that. It's saying, oh my God, this is an error. Dude, I just defined it right there, and you just haven't reflushed your database, so why are you wasting my time? It's like, oh, or is it actually giving me a type? See, I can't, oh, it actually did say the right thing. Return value type does not match the function type, because it wants the pointer. That's just such stupid. Why didn't it underline the whole expression if the expression is the wrong type? Like asked enum was correct. It was like this expression as a whole that was incorrect. Just fail. I might have understood if it had underlined the whole thing. Okay. Let's just disable this and see what happens. Hey, it ran. I'd buy that for $1. All right, well, we fixed that assertion problem. When within use unqueue and scope rejection instead of ad hoc settings. All right, so that's success. So already we have some good action. Now, instead of still going through here, I'm going to work on, I'm pulling in the updates that other people on the compiler team have done lately. And I want to make sure we still run. And then I'm going to take a look at these bugs 6 through 10, which are repro cases of things that those guys found. And I'm going to see what I can do about those rather than, whoops. Because, the stuff that's just randomly on my to-do list is not necessarily blocking anything, whereas those are causing certain programs not to work. All right, so I just compiled and built Sokoban, and yeah, it does seem to compile pretty fine. And it seems to run just fine. So let's go to compiler bugs. Most of bug 1 through 5 have been fixed. I don't know why we still have them checked in, but whatever. Fails with internal compiler error. Use debug build of x64 compiler. But there's now assert not yield. Oh, right. Okay, this will be interesting. Implemented without checking if the array being checked was actually a literal or a variable. Problem now is that calling which one is failing when trying to decide which overload to use. All right, well, I don't quite understand that, but let's take a look at the file. I assume it's in the demo file. Which one? All right, let's just see what happens. Debug builds. Well, let's make the compiler fail on the command line so we know what the arguments are. So yep, so we're getting an assert. Not yield in 6746. This might be an easy fix, and it might be a quite hairy fix. So I wish Visual Studio wasn't such a butt about editing command line options. No jobs. No, that's not. We want that, maybe. There we go. We've got our assertion. So, we are attempting to call a procedure. We're trying, okay. Here's what's going on. We've got this procedure, which one? It's overloaded. We're calling different overloads of which one. This was a demo that I previously gave, by the way, that you can see on YouTube. And it used to work, and now it's tripping an assert. So when we try to call which one, we have to resolve the overload. We have to know which of these is being called for a particular set of arguments. Now, by the time we get to this point, when we're trying to resolve an overload, it's supposed to be the case that the headers, at least for the overloads, have all their type information known, so that we can make that decision, right? And if those have all their type information known, we are not supposed to have to yield when we look at the type information, like in find compatible anonymous member. Now, I suspect, because I've seen this kind of thing before, that what's going on is it's catching on this one with the C argument, because it takes an argument of type C, but C is probably blocking because B or A is not done yet, and that's why we're yielding, because we haven't filled out this struct completely. And it's probably the case that so one of the things that can happen is you can pass in a struct that this other struct is using, and you get an anonymous downcast, kind of like a subclass in C++, but you can't make that comparison to see if that's a valid downcast or upcast or whatever that is, if the type isn't complete, right? And so that's what's happening. Now, if we're yielding from here, I mean, this is in check that types match, which is like as you can see, it's a Mongo function. I'm still scrolling to the top. This didn't used to be able to yield, but it can now. So one of my options, if I decide this isn't a bug, is that I could just yield from here, and then that would be fine. But I want to look at it a little bit. Let me put my dinner in the refrigerator before it gets bad. So does anyone have questions about that? What I said, did it make at least 10% sense, what I said? Why is there not a sub button? Because, I mean, you can do a follow button. Isn't that good enough? Why do you want a sub? Why do you want a sub? Because of that valuable increase in quality of discussion that comes with custom emotes, or what? Would yielding form a dependency? If so, could it form a circular dependency? Okay, so yielding is sort of the new thing that dependencies used to do everything for, right? What I found was, rather than explicitly set up dependencies for all these things in the type checking phase, which gets very complicated, it seemed a lot better to just yield on demand. So you could call it a redundant way of doing the same thing that dependencies do. It doesn't really create a dependency, though. It just says, I'm not ready yet. Although the expression that's being evaluated does then go to sleep on the thing that you're waiting on, which I guess is a kind of dependency. It's very hard for me to imagine a way in which that could get circular, so I'm going to say no. But computers can surprise you sometimes, so we'll see if that ever happens. All right. Maybe we'll figure out a way to let people sub at some point and donate it to charity or something, but Right now, it's just not a priority. It's not a bad idea, actually. Come to think of it. Maybe I'll contact a Twitch representative. Yeah, I'll think about that. I like that idea. Okay, let's get back to debugging. So in this check that types match, we have a wanted type and a given type. And I bet the wanted type, well, let's look at the given type. So given is B and wanted is C. So we're at this call because we're giving it a B as an argument. And we're testing this one. I'm just going to put a breakpoint here because, like, it's not that great to try to recover from an assert. But I'm going to put a breakpoint there, and we're going to rerun. So we'll break when yield. Wait, is that true? Yeah. So we're yielding on a declaration that's in pipe infer. We're waiting on the variable myA. What is that? Okay. So we're testing the C, and the C has B, and the B has myA, and myA is not ready yet. So we're waiting on that. I'm going to try just fixing this by well, instead of declaring a local thing yield, I'm going to say I'm going to pass the argument yield upon, and I'm going to say if wait, is that right? Let me so I presume I could actually pass null in here. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to do a more careful thing. I'm going to do what I was doing. I'm going to pass this local thing called yield, because whoever was calling us may not be planning to yield and may not have passed us a yield upon, so we need to assert in that case. So we say if yield, assert yield upon is yield, return false. So that's just a little bit more of a telling us what the problem is. If this assert ever fires, it's that our caller didn't expect to yield. And I forgot to check that while we were debugging. Well, it didn't seem to trip the assert. Hey, look, that works now. So what's the executable called? Bug6 demo.exe. Look, it ran. Whoa, that looks bad, though. Oh, no. It looks bad because we're not in the right code page. CHCP 65001. Is that the right one? Okay, there we go. It's all good. Now, I will say that all this yielding does have a performance cost in the compiler, because you could yield after you've done a substantial amount of work trying to do something with a procedure call or something like that. So it'll be a later optimization to try and reduce the number of yields that happen, or to try to detect them earlier. But the compiler already runs really fast right now, so it's not super high on the priority list. That was scary when I saw what looked like garbage there. I was like, oh man, this program's messed up and we're going to have to debug it, but it's actually fine. Questions about that? Okay, that's definitely a different problem. Let me set up this and then I'll look for, I'll answer questions. Is the compiler lock-free? No. No, not now, and probably never. But it's also not as parallelized as it needs to be. Certainly, some of the synchronization will be lock-free in the end, for sure. It's just not right now. How am I handling multiple fonts in console? I'm not. It's just programs tend to have some default fonts that they fall back to for different sections of Unicode. So that's all that's happening is, Commander, which is the program I'm using, has a thing where, if you see this, things in this code page fall back to this font, etc. Is this truly the 7th bug found in the compiler? No, the number would be much higher than that. All right. Okay, so here we are asserting there's an enum, and the expression is not tagged as a literal, which is not a surprise. It could be another enum or a more complex expression. So what, I must have been on drugs or high or tired when I wrote this. Probably wasn't high. Where are we? We're in, what are we trying to do here? We're just trying to infer the type of the enum. So we're iterating over. Okay, we're checking for overflow of the value of the enum. Right, so we're getting the value of the enum, and we're seeing if it survives the so the enum can be declared to be a certain size. So we're getting the numerical value of whatever the member was and saying, does it fit in that number of bits that the enum is declared to be? But this is going to be, if we look it up, it's just going to be an identifier, or maybe an addition expression or something. I don't know, honestly, how this has survived for this long in the compiler. Okay, so we're in line what? I've got so many windows, 398. Yeah, so the expression on the right-hand side of this is an identifier called arbitrary value, which that's not a literal. But if I go to constexpr.cpp, you can see this call eval expression to literal or constant. So we should just be able to call that auto literal equals blah. Eval expression to literal or constant on interp. We'll say this, although we probably don't need to copy anything. We can copy it. And so first of all, that had better come back with something, or else our compiler is broken, because we shouldn't be at this point in processing the enum if all of these members are not already processed. And so we had better have gotten something, and it had better be a literal, because enums have literals. Number survives shift. Oh. So this returns a general expression, not necessarily a literal, so we're going to say all right. Let's just see if we can run it. Well, that appears to have worked to fix the assert. Let's make sure this error message is right. Line 405. Oh yeah, because this is old code. So now we're just hitting that this demo is out of date, so I'll bring it up to date for these guys. You know, way back when I did this demo, enums had an implicit member added called count, and I didn't like that dirties the namespace, and it made the internals of the compiler messy as well. So instead, there's a library that tells you, that does a little bit of metaprogramming stuff. So I can go names is enum names of hello, right? And then AX is, so there'll be one name per enum. So you can ask for the size of the names array, right? And then instead of hello.names, it's just names in this case. And then we don't say .strict anymore, we just say whatever. For the values, incomplete. I didn't write a utility info to get all the values from an enum. Get, well, let's wait. Yeah, I don't, okay, wait. Sorry, I'm looking in the wrong place. Type info enum gives us all the values anyway, right? Is that all enum names does? Yeah. Why don't I do this? Enum values info.values. Let's just go into the type info. That's all. So I'm going to say values is enum values hello. And actually, the reason I used to have these helper utilities is that you used to get a type info, and not a type info enum when you did this. Now you get a type info enum. So instead of calling, instead of doing this, I can actually just do type info hello dot values, and the same for names, I think. Let's just see. There's going to be other problems later in the program, but let's just see what they are. Yeah, lowest value and highest value. We'll keep highest value. Hellos. You don't usually care about the lowest value, but if you do, you can use the same idea to like scan for it. This just goes over the values and takes the max. You could get the min and the max and all that. Maybe I should do that. Should return. Actually, yes, let's do that. Enum. Enum deprecate enum highest value for enum value range. Wow, I'm just going to town right now. Because we might as well give the lowest and highest value because people might want that sometimes. So I'm going to paste these. I'm going to say enum value range gives a low value and a high all right. So low, high value range. We should just call it enum range. Like value range just sounds, it sounds too wordy and not given enough information. Okay, so enum range given info. If it's somehow an empty enum, we just return zeros, who cares? We just say that that's undefined, right? I'll just say low and high. Turn low, high. Okay, so right, it's not hello.values. I just put it in values there. And I don't think there's such a thing as hello.loose anymore. Oh, I guess there is. I haven't gotten rid of loose yet. All right. So that's all good. Those are supposed to be uninitialized, so that's good. Those look like scary numbers, but it's like, oh yeah, it's uninitialized. I mean, we'll double check all these numbers later when we go over these demos with a fine-tooth comb to make sure there's no like compiler bugs, but for now, whoops. Why did that not commit? Wait, what? Oh, because we already committed it when, right, it's a subfolder of the basic folder. Okay, any questions about that? Sending a message to the other guys on the team, letting them know what I did. I also made the Bug 7 demo program work, which involved changing anachronisms about how enums are referred to. About how enum metadata is gotten. See the check-in. Okay, back to chat. OpenSUSE. Should be using floppies. Can we kill off JavaScript with this? No, this language is targeted in a very, very different direction than JavaScript. Not remotely the same problem statement. Oh yeah, this one's a little scary. Oh yeah. I think they might have fixed this one, and this is just here for me to code review it. Oh. I mean, it doesn't have all the other source. I don't know. I have to ask him about this in email. I think this was meant to be the whole invaders source and isn't, or something. Maybe I'll have to read it more carefully off stream. But that's kind of all that I'm in the mood to do right now. I'm a little bit tired tonight, so we fixed 3 different bugs. We fixed that assertion enum general problem, and then we fixed these 2 that were getting in the way of the rest of the team, which is good news. Let's see if I can aim my camera down. I want to slouch a little bit. That's a pretty good 1-hour stream, honestly. If we fix 3 different bugs, it's not bad. I count that as victory. I think I'm gonna go to bed or something, or watch a TV show to chill. And I can't do that on Twitch or they'll ban me. So that means I have to log out. Whiskey time? It's not whiskey time. Not whiskey time. Now, people drink on Twitch all the time, but you can't watch movies on Twitch or else you get banned. Would experience on an enterprise programming team improve my programming skills? I have a BS in computer science and trying to decide between taking a chill application support job, which would leave me more free time to work on my indie projects, or an enterprise web developer job, programming in Java web technologies. I don't know, man. Both of those don't sound that great, honestly. The problem with a chill application support job is you're probably not developing your skills very well because you're not being pushed, right? And you don't want to think of a job as just a way that you trade your time for money, because that's not good, right? But you're extremely limiting the benefit that you get out of it, right? You don't want to just exchange time for money. You want to, while trading time for money, also get a nonlinear benefit out of it, like increasing your skills tremendously or whatever. And everyone says, oh, you get new skills in a new job or whatever, but that's the degree to which that's true is wildly dependent on the job. And what I've always found is that if you are operating at close to your skill threshold, that's better. Now you are saying, well, it would give me time to work on my own project, and maybe, but I mean, really, like with an 8-hour-a-day job, your side project, it's hard to really get as much juice out of that side project skill-wise to make up for what you're not doing for that 8 hours a day. So there's that. On the other hand, the enterprise developer job also sounds super boring and not at anyone's skill threshold, right? You know, Java is sort of designed to be a boring programming language. Nobody really writes exciting software in Java. Nobody really solves hard problems in Java for the most part. So, you know, I would say keep looking for an alternative job that's much more exciting, right? If you could like somehow go to the equivalent of the old Bell Labs or something where people are solving really interesting cutting edge problems and you get to think really hard about problems and, you know, do new stuff, that's ideal. I'd be looking for something like that. Now I'm getting hungry again. Maybe I'm sad that I put my dinner in the refrigerator. Someone is asking, you previously mentioned that there was going to be a limited release of the compiler. Has that happened? Would you describe its status? No, there has not yet been a limited release. What we're doing right now with these bugs checked in, for example, that I was attacking, and me working my way through that to-do list, is on the roadmap for a limited release. So we sort of have now, like prior to this week, whenever people ask about a limited release, I'm like, oh, someday, right? So now we actually have a list of things that we plan to do. It's not probably complete, but we have a list of things that we plan to do before doing that release. And we're working our way through that list. So I'm not attaching dates to it yet, but it is actually a more concrete plan than it ever has been. So we'll see what happens there. Does defer still work? Yes, it does still work. Does that change recursion? For example, when parsing expressions with the presentation software, could you have iterated over the expression and deferred anything that wasn't at the current priority level? I don't think I would have tried to do that way, because I mean, I need to go back and fix some stuff in that parser anyway, so maybe we'll see. We'll consider this when we go back there. But I don't think so, because like, you need to know what part of the string is at the next priority level, which you don't know until you've called the subroutine, right? So it's not really a defer kind of a thing. But we'll see. I'll keep it in mind when we get back there. All right, I'm going to go and sign off this stream, and I'll probably upload this one and the previous one to YouTube, and I'll see you guys later. It was a good little 1 hour of stuff. You're asking how much is left off the list to do before the limited release. It's intended to be worked on a bit later. There's definitely some things. It's mostly, for limited release, we're not that worried about exactly what's in the standard library, for example. We just want to provide some stuff, and then we'll get people's opinions about what the library should be like, and then sort of integrate that, We're not going to be that, the sample code will be whatever it is at limited release time, whatever's available. And then for the full release, we'll have real, documented applications and stuff like that. So yeah, see you guys later. I'll be streaming tomorrow on a special topic for anybody who's interested in that. So.